Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The finest silk textiles hanging in the design room were not as thick as the strain in the air at Forrester Creations. Ivy Forrester has been manipulating her niece Electra for weeks, believing that she should be with R.J. Forrester instead of Will Spencer. Ivy's obsession was rooted in a long-standing animosity for the Spencer family that spanned generations and was entwined with past betrayals between the Spencers and the Forresters. Will, in her opinion, was nothing more than a diversion and a danger to the family history she so badly wished to preserve, or perhaps dominate. It began quietly. Ivy had found a sincere letter that Will had written to Electra, apologizing and promising a new beginning following their most recent difficult time. Ivy concealed it rather than giving it to Electra, sowing doubts in her mind. She persuaded her niece that RJ, sweet, artistic, devoted RJ, was the steady option and that Will was untrustworthy due to his fragmented attention. For his part, RJ agreed to the plan for personal reasons. Due to jealousy over Electra's lingering sentiments and a few physical altercations that left both bodies and egos bruised, his rivalry with Will had turned into blatant enmity. RJ and Ivy made their most audacious move to date in the sleek, contemporary CEO office with a view of Los Angeles. They surrounded Ridge Forrester and demanded that Will and Dylan, Electra's helpful buddy who had been employed by the company, be dismissed right away. RJ said, "They're disrupting everything," in an irate tone. Ivy stepped next to him, her Australian accent slicing her words like a designer's shears. "Will's presence is toxic for Electra, and Dylan enables it. This is a fashion house, not a soap opera set." Ridge, who has always been the patriarch, listened with a mixture of surprise and frustration. Hiring Dylan was never proper in the first place. She's not committed to the vision here. And Will? He's a Spencer through and through. We can't have that kind of influence poisoning our family. He firmly reminded them that he and Steffi, the co-COS, made hiring and firing decisions. He stated, "We're in the business of creating beauty, not playing matchmaker or settling old scores," in a tone that did not allow for compromise. However, RJ refused to give up. He freely acknowledged the reasons he couldn't tolerate Will, the never-ending rivalry, and the way Will managed to effortlessly win Electra back in spite of everything. Ivy gave a forceful nod, her eyes shining with a mixture of protectiveness and something darker, a desire to arrange people's lives like patterns on a cutting table. They had no idea that the walls were getting closer. Having personally seen Ivy's dishonesty, Daphne was unable to remain silent. She had heard the machinations in whispers, seen the pilfered letter, and felt the guilt of the secret bearing down on her. Daphne sought guidance from Carter as she struggled to balance her commitment to the family with her moral obligations. She was encouraged to follow her heart by Carter, who was always the calm voice in the middle of the commotion. "Secrets like this have a way of exploding," he said. "The explosion occurred earlier than anyone anticipated. And when they do, they take everyone down with them." Daphne pulled Electra aside in a quiet moment away from the bustle of the office. She told the truth in a shaky voice. Weeks earlier, Ivy had concealed Will's letter, which held the potential to restore their relationship. Electra's face turned pale, then red with rage. She what? The treachery was profound. Ivy had been manipulating Electra like a puppet master in a high-stakes drama, but Electra had believed her aunt and relied on her for advice. In the design studio, amid bolts of opulent fabric and unfinished sketches, Electra confronted Ivy. Electra raised her voice and yelled, "How could you do this to me? To us?" Ivy's poise broke as she attempted to defend herself. She asserted that it was all for Electra's benefit, that what would just cause her heartache once more, and that RJ was the Forrester line's destiny in many respects. However, her arguments were unsuccessful. The possessiveness and meddling that had almost cost her a shot at true happiness were visible to Electra. The Forrester hallways were soon filled with rumors. Steffi arranged an urgent meeting because she was already not like of Ivy's plans. When RJ's mother, Brooke Logan, saw the entire scope of the manipulation, she became enraged. Even though she had always been protective of her son, She saw that Ivy had gone too far by entangling RJ in her web and putting him in danger of heartbreak. With the burden of his family's legacy bearing down on him, Ridge stood steadily next to his co-CEO. The emotional impact was anything but quiet, but the dismissal took place quickly and without publicity. With icy eyes, Steffi broke the news to Ivy first. Your actions have disrupted this company one too many times. Personal vendettas have no place at Forrester Creations. You're out, Ivy. Effective immediately. Ivy's face was furious. Reminding Ridge of their familial ties, she begged for his help. Ridge, however, shook his head. You've gone too far this time. You've hurt Elektra. You've pitted RJ against Will in ways that could have torn this family apart. I can't overlook that. RJ followed. His forceful drive to terminate Will and Dylan, together with his alliance with Ivy, depicted him as complicit even if he hadn't planned the letter theft. Ridge and Steffi concurred that his actions at work, including his demands, disputes, and physical altercation with Will, had made the workplace intolerable. This isn't just about romance, Ridge said solemnly to his kid. RJ argued, his voice shaking with a mixture of sadness and defiance. It's about respect for the business and the people in it. You've let jealousy cloud your judgment, and now it's affecting everyone. He felt that he was battling for Elektra because he loved her, or at least thought he did. The COSOS, however, remained unfazed. In a scene that was both tragic and poetic, RJ and Ivy were released together and escorted out. The sun was lowering over Los Angeles, creating long shadows over the parking lot as they departed the shiny Forrester building. If nothing else, Ivy and RJ were united in their dismissal as they strolled side by side. Tears of frustration filled Ivy's eyes, shattering her customary composure. This wasn't supposed to happen, she said, holding onto her high-end purse as if it were a lifeline. With his shoulders sagged, RJ gave her a sour look and said, I was protecting Elektra, protecting the family. We both went too far. I thought if I pushed hard enough, she'd see me. But now, what do we have left? At first, there was silence as they drove away from the firm, their mutual failure weighing heavily. As reality set in, Ivy, ever the cunning one, started planning her next move. She had damaged relations with every member of the Forrester clan, not just Elektra. There would be rumors because Brooke had already approached her harshly and dismissed any attempts at explanation. You used my son, Brooke had said, her voice shaking with parental rage. RJ glanced out the window, reliving the events leading up to this conclusion, saying, You turn his feelings into a weapon, and now he's paying for it. His competition with Will had deeper roots than Elektra. It was reminiscent of the long-standing conflict between Forrester and Spencer, in which business and passion were always at odds like mismatched patterns in a collection. He had thought it was admirable to guide Elektra away from Will since he respected her enthusiasm and inventiveness. However, he had compromised his own ethics by forming an alliance with Ivy. RJ now faced an uncertain future after being sacked from the family business his grandfather Eric had established. Would he make a comeback with fresh designs, maybe starting his own line? Or would he become even more resentful due to the pain of rejection? In the aftermath, the family returned to the Forrester mansion. The patriarch, Eric Forrester, who had led them through many storms with his health and wisdom, expressed displeasure. Family means supporting each other, not tearing each other down, he remarked quietly, the weight of decades of experience in the field in his voice. After a debriefing, Steffi and Ridge agreed that although the decision was hard, it was vital to bring the organization back to harmony and focus. Elektra took comfort in Will's arms as she dealt with her aunt's betrayal. Now that she had the letter, it came to represent second chances. She muttered to Will, I almost lost you because of her games, as their reconciliation blossomed in the middle of the mayhem. Dylan was also relieved that the threats against her employment had vanished. Her devotion to Elektra had been put to the test, but it turned out to be more resilient than any plot. Ivy saw the termination as an exile from the inner group more than just a loss of employment. Her goal upon moving to Los Angeles was to use her talents as a jeweler and designer to make a name for herself in the Forrester industry. Those doors were now firmly closed. Opportunities might become scarce, and industry friends would whisper. The humiliation seared, and she considered going back to Australia or making alliances elsewhere. Her bond with Electra was broken, perhaps irreparably so. In the silence of her makeshift quarters, she told herself again, I only wanted what was best, but even she found the words meaningless. RJ's journey was just as difficult. He was a young designer with great potential, but no artistic achievement could instantly ease the pain of being kicked out by his own parents. He played back exchanges with his father, the cautions disregarded, the enthusiasm misguided. Maybe this was the wake-up call he needed to focus his energies on real development instead of competition. Or perhaps it would inspire a new phase of rebellion, an independent endeavor that posed an external threat to the Forrester empire. Weeks passed, and the symptoms continued to spread. There was a lot of conjecture in the fashion industry. Anonymous sources described the sudden departures, and tabloids alluded to internal purges at Forrester Creations. In the midst of the chaos, Will and Electra's rekindled passion became a silent ray of hope, their tales serving as a reminder that love could withstand deceit. In addition to encouraging truth-telling, Carter and Daphne's talks strengthened the company's foundation by fostering stronger relationships among the supporting cast. However, that joint rejection felt like the end for Ivy and RJ. They had joined the battle as supporters of a wrong cause, only to lose their lives as a result. Ivy's audacious plans, motivated by a perverted feeling of security, had disastrously backfired. RJ had lost his position in the family business due to his immaturity. Collectively, they symbolized the perils of allowing personal preferences to trump professional boundaries and family trust. Their chapter ended with a dramatic unraveling in the vast fabric of Forrester Creations. The wounds persisted even as the business advanced, with collections debuting and designs flowing. Every now and then, Electra looked at old pictures and wondered how her aunt's love had become uncontrollable. Late into the night, RJ drew, his lines becoming more precise and his vision changing as a result of suffering. Resilient as ever, Ivy started making calls, her ambition unabated but now tempered by the consequences. Dramas and fashion in Los Angeles never slept. However, this specific storm had passed for Ivy and RJ, leaving them adrift, fired together, united in defeat, and compelled to face the ruins of their decisions. The outcome was more than just losing one's job. It was a severe lesson in the boundaries of meddling and the strength of the truth. Their tales served as a warning in the world of bold and the beautiful, where love and treachery danced in never-ending cycles. Certain plans, no matter how well thought out, ultimately fall apart. Ivy found herself thinking back on her voyage from Australia to the center of American fashion monarchy as the weeks passed. Her jewelry designs, wit, and steadfast devotion to what she considered to be family values had wowed. However, control poisoned loyalty, turning it into something else different. Though the shadow of her departure from Forrester lingered large, she went out to old acquaintances, possibly hoping to return to modeling or freelance creative work. She was followed by whispers. That's the one who tried to play God with her niece's heart. RJ, on the other hand, spent time with his grandfather Eric, looking for advice beyond business. The young man was given perspective by Eric's tales of earlier successes and setbacks, which served as a reminder that reinvention was feasible. You've got Forrester blood, Eric remarked. Use it to build, not to burn. Ridge pushed for accountability. Brooke's protectiveness battled with her displeasure, and RJ's connection with his parents remained tense, but not broken. Will and Electra's journey became somewhat easier, and their reunion is proof of their tenacity. Daphne gained respect for her bravery in telling the truth, and the working environment became lighter without the persistent undercurrents of sabotage. Dylan became comfortable in her role and quietly contributed to the creative process. However, Ivy and RJ's absence was noticeable. The stunning departure became legendary in water-cooler chats, but new faces appeared and new ideas circulated. Employees would uneasily laugh and ask, "Remember when Ivy and RJ tried to clear house?" It served as a warning that human weaknesses like jealousy, hubris, and mistaken love could bring down the powerful even in a world of glitz and high stakes. Ultimately, their joint dismissal represented more than just corporate cleaning. It marked the end of a period of meddling and the start of both parties' possible redemption stories. Ivy could rise once more, her passion redirected toward real achievement. RJ might come out stronger, his skill honed by adversity. But for the time being, as they dealt with the immediate fallout, the truth was clear. Forrester Creations' doors had closed, along with a chapter characterized by misguided ambition. As the sun rose over the hills, new opportunities became apparent. Neither fashion nor the complex dance of relationships in this legendary society waited for anyone. Even though Ivy and RJ's narrative ended in dismissal, it left threads that could be picked up again in the future and rewoven into something unexpected. Because endings in soap operas were often only pauses before the next twist, they were rarely definitive. As soon as the news was announced, the mood at Forrester Creations changed. What started out as a stressful morning swiftly turned into something far more certain. As the decision was made, Ivy and RJ Forrester, who had previously been viewed as promising figures within the organization, found themselves standing next to each other in startled silence. This time there would be no second chances. No second thought. Just a tidy, final demise. It had not appeared out of nowhere. Whispers concerning judgment, loyalty, and the brand's future had been making the rounds for weeks. Once commended for their audacity, Ivy's creative risks had started to conflict with the company's changing goals. Passionate but increasingly impetuous, RJ had crossed lines that others believed were inappropriate. When taken as a whole, their decisions created a picture that the leadership could no longer ignore. Ridge had a solid yet conflicted expression. This was family, not just business. Within these walls, however, even family had boundaries. The business came first. Always. Eric continued to be more reserved, his heavy silence betraying his disappointment. Nobody intervened to stop it, but nobody wanted it to end this way either. Ivy questioned the finality of it all while trying to keep her cool and speak steadily. But RJ was unable to contain his annoyance. He pushed back, arguing that they should have another chance to prove themselves. But even before they walked into the room, the choice had already been decided. Closure was the main goal of this meeting, not discussion. The gravity of the situation struck in as they packed their belongings. They exchanged eyes that conveyed a lot of information, including remorse, perplexity, and perhaps even a small amount of comfort. They left behind more than just their careers when they left together. They left behind unfulfilled goals, damaged relationships, and an ambiguous legacy. The world continued beyond those doors. However, everything had changed for RJ and Ivy. It's uncertain what will happen next. Will this moment define them forever, or will they manage to rebuild? Because endings are never really endings in a world where ambition, devotion, and power collide. They're the start of something far more unpredictable, and that's precisely what draws viewers in.